Let's talk about sex. Erin Consmo, the artist who let me borrow her pictures here today, suggested this title after I was not sure how to introduce my topic. Sex work is real work. Just as you recently heard, currently I'm studying at Western, studying criminology. I have a strong interest in issues relating to Aboriginal women, being one myself. In 2006, I moved to London, went to Fanshawe in 2008, graduated in 2010 from the law clerk program, and now I'm here today to talk about sex. With the topic, I'm here to help deconstruct the stigma that sex workers face and discuss the decriminalization of the trade. Deconstruct and decriminalization, the double Ds of sex work. On September 28, 2010, Superior Court of Justice Himmels ruled that Canada's current prostitution laws violate the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and should be struck down. Justice Himmel's decision stated that the current laws force prostitutes to choose between their liberty interests and the right to security of person. This means that prostitutes, also known as sex workers, have to decide between their freedom or right to security as persons because of the current section within the Criminal Code of Canada. So what is a sex worker, you ask? Carol Lee coined this term in 1978 at a conference to remove the negative connotations associated with the word prostitute. A sex worker is someone who works in the sex industry and who actually provides sexual services as opposed to the management and staff of such industry. Sex workers are a diverse group, and you've probably all come across a sex worker or knew a sex worker in your life but did not know it. The stigmatization that sex workers face has become normalized within Western society. Stigma is defined as an attribute that reduces an individual from a whole and usual person to a tainted, discredited one. They are usually considered deviant and shameful and thus are avoided by those outside the stigmatized group. The whore stigma, as pointed out by Gail Federson, is one of the most powerful tools for the social control of women. Two French sex worker activists, Matrice Nikita and Terry Chauffeur, coined the term whorephobia, which may be defined simply as the fear of sex workers. Those who exercise violence against sex workers see themselves as doing a service to humanity, and sometimes those who read about these violent acts in the media agree with the whorephobes. This type of social control continues to normalize this type of hate and violence faced by sex workers. An article released by First in February 2011 pointed out the fact that $10 million was allocated for missing and murdered women, but not a single dollar was allocated to sex worker safety needs. It is with this knowledge that we must be reminded that Robert Pickton targeted sex workers in Vancouver downtown East Side. Further, according to a report conducted by Chris and Fred in collaboration with Power, states that there are many intersecting marginalizations that continue to oppress and leave specific groups at a greater disadvantage. One of these groups are Aboriginal people. The report dated December 2nd, 2010 highlights that Aboriginal people experience poverty at a much higher rate than any other group within Canada, and that the over-policing of this same group is well documented. Aboriginal sex workers, as part of an already disadvantaged group, may face discrimination for being Aboriginal or for being a sex worker. The report also highlighted the issue of poverty is a significant variable at the middle of these intersects. However, it must be noted that not all Aboriginal people who live in poverty are sex workers, and not all Aboriginal people, especially women who enter the criminal justice, are sex workers. As the report states, sex workers are not poor because they are sex workers. They are poor people who are sex workers. High poverty rates, high unemployment rates, and well-documented cases of over-policing, decriminalizing sex work becomes important, especially for the significantly marginalized groups like Aboriginal women. Further, entering into the justice system and facing a criminal record for simply being part of an occupational group can be detrimental to one's freedom to make choices. Individuals who work in the sex trade are social agents capable of making choices. Criminalizing their work limits their freedom to choose. We must remember that sex workers do not ask to be victimized or criminalized. As outcasts of society, they ask to be treated as persons with rights, just like every other Canadian, including you and me. When we commit to the same ideological values of whorephobes and contribute to the social stigma faced by sex workers, we commit to the alienation and isolation of this occupation group. Deconstructing the social stigma and addressing the issue of whorephobia is important for individuals and institutions within our society to properly address the issue of violence, victimization, and criminalization of sex workers. I hope I was able to rouse some new ways of thinking with the double D's of sex work. Remember, sex work is real work. Thank you to these organizations. Thank you.